Well, hello, and welcome back. A quick note for the impatient that are just here for the answer. There's a link in the description to the documentation that's hidden away in the Mailchimp site for how to do what I'm going to do. But this is not a quick 60-second style tutorial. This is something that is part of a larger project that I'm going to be walking through for the people that have been following along. So, my name's AJ O'Neill. I'll be your Beyond Code instructor for the evening. And what we're going to do is we are going to add a sign-up form to a homepage. So basically, I want to have something that is like this. So what's your email address? What's your biggest question or concern right now? Hit subscribe. And the reason that I want to do this on my own page, because Mailchimp has this landing page system. It has kind of like a Wix/Squarespace style builder. But let me show you what's wrong with that. So what's wrong with that is that if I search Beyond Code Bootcamp, you'll notice that there's a stupid, ugly monkey for the favicon where there should be the favicon for my site with my logo and all that, right? And that's really annoying to me, and there's no way to change this. So I don't want to use a landing page where if I direct people to the landing page, they get someone else's branding when I'm paying for it. Like, that's just redonkulous to me. So, and it's discontinuous, and it doesn't help people find the brand and that sort of thing. So if you search for, okay, well, how the heck do I just use a simple form and some JavaScript to post to the Mailchimp API? You'll find all this API documentation and all sorts of stuff, but it's not relevant because they don't document in the API how you add a subscriber from a web page. And they do actually have this page, which I don't remember which of these it is because the name of it doesn't make sense to what it is. You just have to comb through. So there's this page, and this is really common when you're dealing with services. You just have to go through a bunch of documentation and figure it out. It's tough. But what I did find was host your own sign-up forms. Okay, no, the title of that actually does make sense. But this is what ended up being the right thing. And essentially what they say is, well, you go through this hokey process and then you go to the inspector, view source of the page, and then go through to find the bits that are the important bits, and then you add them onto your page. So I'm not going to show you up to that point because they kind of describe it well enough here. But essentially, yeah, you go into their form builder, you create a form as if you're going to use it on the Mailchimp site. And then, as they say, you visit the demo site and then you just view page source and you go through and you have to look for these particular values. So I've already done that for me, and I'm going to show you the process that I went through. And it's going to be similar for you, but we're going to skip the actual step of doing the inspector. You'll be able to figure that out from what's here and what I'm showing you. All right, what was the other bit here? That, and then, oh yeah, so this is the landing page that they give us. I was trying to use one of their templates, and it didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to. I don't know, doesn't really look that great. But here's the sign up. You put in your email address, you hit subscribe. That's what I want to replicate. I'll eventually have some of the videos and stuff, although some of these thumbnails are a little corny, but whatever. We'll get that onto the real Beyond Code site. So beyondcodebootcamp.com is going to be self-hosted from that blog project that we've gone through. So I'll put a link to the playlist for that in the description. I don't have it right now, but right now, even live, the description for this link is in there. Okay, so with the background out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. And if at any point you have that aha moment where something clicks for you and you find that this is useful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Now I'm going to, the work that I did before, see, I put here a note to myself, the form is hidden within. So you can put comments in gists, or not gists, this is an issue on GitHub. So if we go to edit this, I actually have in here all of the stuff that I already copied from before. So we're just going to take this, we're going to modify our blog, and I am going to do a little bit that's out of scope of the Mailchimp because we're going to modify that blog site, which is this site, so that it doesn't actually show the blog, but rather we'll put a little blurb here, and then we'll have this sign up form. And then I'll improve that a little bit, add a welcome video or something, and then this will go from beyondcode.duckdns.org to the actual website, and I might do a video to show how that goes as well. But anyway, oh, and I did want to mention I do have the comments open, so if you happen to be watching live, I'll try to keep an eye on that on both Twitch and YouTube. Okay. So I will explain this as we actually go to put it in. But first, let me just update this a little bit. So we have our build script here, where we're building our bash and markdown blog. I'm going to go down to the bottom. I think that's where we do the important stuff. So we're going to render articles, render page. Yep. Okay, that all looks well and good. Render page. So I think I can just change some of what I'm doing here with the index. You know what? We won't worry about that right now. Forget that I even went in there. We're just going to go into the index file. Oh, whoops. Not the index file, the index template. Where'd the index template go? Don't I have like a TPL directory or something here? Index.html. Where did this come from? Nav, maybe? Index.md. There we are. Okay, so we got basically nothing here right now. Now we can put form elements in a markdown file, but I'm going to change this maybe to be an HTML file. Let me think about that. Yeah, I think we're going to change this to be an HTML file. So I'm going to do h1. I'll put that there. I'm going to do as little as possible. Let's just add in the HTML to the markdown file and see where that gets us. And I'll describe it as we go here. Oh, and then the JavaScript. I want to describe the script JavaScript too. I need to unminify that because that's ugly and not readable. Now, generally, when you render HTML and Markdown, you can't render things like forms. But because this is my own blog and I'm rendering locally on my own computer, I can do whatever I want. And I'm going to take this little bit of JavaScript here. I'm going to cut it out. Actually, just copy. There we go. Just copy it. And then I'm going to do index.js. I'm just going to paste it in so that I can get formatting. Oh, it says unexpected token. Oh, no. Let's see what we got here. Basically, I'm just trying to unminify this. I don't know why there would be any unexpected tokens. Everything's looking good so far. Oh, there we are. Yes, that makes sense. That would not work if I had a return there that was commented out. Let's see if it'll... There we go. Okay, cool. So I had done a manual minify. I basically just held Shift-J and done that right there. And of course, there was a comment, the line comment, and so that caused a syntax error. That was the problem there. Okay. So let me go ahead and copy this bit out. And this is, I'll be explaining because I wrote this. This is not part of what they give you as part of that tutorial. So the parts they don't give you as part of the tutorial, I'm going to explain. Let's see here. It'd be nice if I got syntax highlighting on that, but oh well. Oh, it's because it's a markdown file. Yeah, they're not going to give me much, huh? Okay, so I do need to figure out... I am actually going to have to go in my little build file here and figure out what to do about rendering pages. While you were away, I updated this so that it could render HTML files as well as Markdown files. But I'm not sure. I need to go look back at the code because it's been a minute. So here's my render function. Where does it have anything to do with HTML? That. What did I miss here? So there's my path. Okay, comrack. my partial, my article.md. So basically what I'll need to do here is say if this is an HTML file, if it's a Markdown file, I'm going to render it. Otherwise, I'm not going to render it. So what do I need to do for that? Let me look down here. Render page. Maybe I need a render Markdown and then a render HTML that are slightly different. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. We'll see. We'll see how this works out. Because this I want to be the blog page is what I want it to be. I don't want to get too lost in this because this wasn't really the purpose of the video, but I do need to figure something out here so that my index file is an HTML file. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to say that this is the blog. I'm just going to rename some stuff here because we're going to make the landing page is going to be not the blog listing page. And so I'm just going to rename all this stuff. And then we're going to rename that file to blog that was in nav. So that all looks okay so far. So basically these two should be the same. Yep, that looks about right. So then I need to move my nav index.md to nav index or blog.md. And then I need to create a new thing that renders the page. And I think one of the issues was that we wanted to have navigation in the page. So is that part of my problem here? Render articles. Because the nav should be everywhere. So I think anything that has a render articles, that's what adds the listing in the middle of the page. Okay, so that should be good. So I just need to what do I need to do to have an HTML page here? All right, let's see, we're going to have index.html, index.html. So my nav will be in an HTML page. I'm just making a copy of it here. And then I'm going to need to render the page, I suppose. Let's see, what was render page doing? What important stuff is it adding? It's rendering the Markdown. It's replacing content in the partial from the template with whatever the partial is. Okay, and that is what contains the nav. Great. And you know, all this stuff, if you weren't following along with the previous one, you just skip this section. Check in the description for time codes to where we get to the good stuff. I'll put that in there when the video gets made. All right, dir name. I'm making a path, so we don't, but we had a special one for index, didn't we? Oh, okay, yeah. If index, then index is index.html. So basically, I had some logic here to handle where files go. Well, like, we want to be able to have page listings. There's the blog listing, there's the projects listing, etc. But the index is special because it doesn't go in a subfolder called index. It goes at the root level. And that's what I was looking for right here. So basically, yeah, I think all I need to do is just to add some sort of indicator. I think I'm going to create a function that is called render mkdn. And then I'll have another function that is render HTML. And this one is going to call render page with, what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 things that are getting passed in. I'm just going to put all of those in quotes so that they don't get split up if they have spaces in them or something. And then I'm going to call this one mkdn. There we go. And we'll do this one as HTML. And then I will update this to have my format, and then I'll increment all of these. And then I need to add an if statement here. So we'll just declare that there, and then do if mkdn is equal to my format, then we'll do this, else we'll do something else. Duh. I think what we want to do in the other case is to just use cat, I guess, because there's no rendering that needs to be done. So that seems like that should be well enough. Okay. Yeah. I think that's cool. Oh, and then we need to have, of course, actually make sure it's assigned to that value. Okay, cool. So now we have better render page support for plain HTML. I should still put the content block. It's still in the partial file. I need to put some more comments in here as to what this stuff does. This looks a little nasty. Build my prefix, my path. Yeah, I don't think I need to change anything else. Okay. So there's a little bit of a tangent there, but that is what I actually need to do. And then we can have this render page, right? Because then I can render page, temp, index. Oh, wait, I can do render HTML. And these other ones I need to change now to render markdown. I need to make sure that all of my render page functions are updated. Okay, and what is this one here? Okay, my article. Oh, but I need to know what the extension is. And this doesn't actually tell me. Well, let's try this then. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to change it so that if the file exists as a markdown file, then I'll assume that we're going to call render markdown. Otherwise, I'll assume that we're going to call render HTML. And that should do us well enough for rendering a directory of articles, I think. Yep. Okay. Now, maybe I should test this and see that everything is working as expected. Oh, and I don't actually want to do clear temp on this twice, do I? seem to remember there being an issue about that. Or maybe it's, yeah, I just wanted to have it at the beginning and the end, not in the middle. Okay. Let's see what our build modifications are. Does this look right? I'm just kind of doing a quick scan here to make sure that there wasn't anything changed that I wasn't expecting. It looks right. Okay. So this stuff, all this HTML, we want to get rid of it, and we want to have index.html. So now that that's copied, I was just going back and forth between the files because I like to copy and then make the destructive action and not do the destructive action beforehand. Meaning destructive action, delete. I don't want to, I like to copy and paste and then go back and delete in case when I'm working with files that are potentially have, that haven't been committed to the repository yet, because occasionally something messes up your paste buffer and then you go to paste and it's empty and it's like, everything I just had that was there is gone. So that's what that was about. All right, and we do want to be able to have something up here. Welcome to Beyond Code. Sure, looks good. Join us. There we are. All right, so now this is the part where you can tune back in if you're interested to learn about the Mailchimp stuff. All right, so what I've got here is I have created a section that I have a style called Markdown body for this page. So this is just going to apply that style to form elements and stuff that's inside of it. And then you're supposed to put the style in the head of a document, but you can actually put it anywhere and it will apply. I'm not sure if it applies to things above it, but I do believe, I know at least it applies to things below it. So if you want to have a small, simple HTML component, you can take something and just include some style in it. So here, I'm actually going to come back to the style once we've looked at the form stuff, because I think that this doesn't quite make sense until we look at that. So let me get down here to the form. So part of this is copied in the way that I showed in that article on the Mailchimp site, but part of it is stuff that I changed. So I'm going to try to explain which is each. So all the class names I changed to make my own. The action is the action that I got from the inspector, as well as the method. So a form has an action and a method, and that bit is what I copied. Now, there's a couple of different inputs that are important. You wouldn't want to copy mine for these things because they're random values that are specific to my account. So you'd be subscribing people to my thing, and that would be awkward and annoying for everybody involved. So these are the specific values that when you inspect, you get them from your Mailchimp page. And you just copy and paste. I did a Control F to find what I was looking for, or sometimes I do an edit as HTML and copy and paste it elsewhere. But anyway, I pretty much got the whole form out, and then I just cleaned it up because I had a bunch of junk that wasn't necessary. But it does need the name equals you and the name equals ID. And then it has what's known as a honeypot. Let me actually turn this back into a comment. I had turned it into a script comment because I was wrapping it in a comment. So it's got what we call a honeypot. And the honeypot, what we typically do is we apply some sort of class to it that makes it not display on the page in a place where the user would see it. But this means that a screen reader could still pick it up. And so the screen reader gets this label. When somebody who is blind is listening to the page, they're going to hear, please leave the following 3 fields empty. And then when a bot is looking at this page, a bot is typically going to try to figure out, okay, what inputs can I fill out to submit this form? And so this honeypot is here so that if any of these values, be name, be email, be comment, etc., if any of these actually get filled out, it's going to cause the form to be immediately rejected. So we actually want to keep the honeypot in here so that if some bot visits my site and just inputs random emails, it will probably get back a success message, or in this case, I think it gets back no message, and it won't actually go through. And so this is called honeypotting. It's just when you put fields in a form that a machine or a bot might mistakenly fill out, but a human either won't see, or you have some instructions. If it's a screen reader, then they wouldn't be aware of where the visual position on the page is, but they'll get some instructions. Don't fill out these inputs. And then the real user will only put in the inputs that they can see or that they are told that they should fill out, and the bot doesn't get them. So we can ignore all of this stuff. None of those are important. And then after that, I just have some of these divs so that I can apply classes to them. What's important is the inputs, and the input names are things like merge1, merge0, merge1, merge2, etc. This is related specifically to the form as you create it in Mailchimp. So if you had 4 different questions on your form, then you're going to have merge0, merge1, merge2, merge3. And then maybe there's another one. No, there's not. Okay, that's it. So you put a label for your input because it's a nice thing to do. Screen readers use it. And if you actually put a label around your input, which I'm going to do here, this is not something that everybody do. And in fact, some people, they get really kind of knots in their knickers about this because a label is intended for screen readers. And also, visually, the labels appear. So where it says email address, that's actually going to appear just like I showed over here. This is the label, email address, what's your biggest question, and then this is the input. But a side effect of labels that is really only accomplishable with a label is that if you want the target size of an input to be slightly bigger, and what I mean by that is, so when I hover over this target, you can see that I have to get exactly on the inside of the target before it activates. So if you want to give a little bit of a buffer so that when you get pretty close to the target, say for example, I think it would make sense since this target has a highlighting drop shadow that is about 3 pixels out from where the button is, that when you get to about 3 pixels out from where the button is, it should activate. That's my belief. That's a good user experience, is that the element, it activates within the region that it is visually present, and maybe even another pixel or 2 more, just to give it a little bit of a buffer, because people don't move their mouse exactly to something. They overshoot and then they come back. So, pay attention to what you do. Next time you're on a web page, how do you move your mouse? Always, you overshoot and you move back. And so when you give people a couple of extra pixels of buffer, it means that if they overcorrect when they overcorrect, there's a chance that if they just click, say if I were to click right here, if I'm using a label and I give the label a little bit of padding, whatever padding the label gets, the button's going to become a little bit larger, and it just makes a nice larger target area. And this, I think, is just good user experience. Anyway, so I'm going to do that with both of these. So I'm just going to take the input, put it inside the label, and then again, the name merge0, merge1 doesn't mean anything. It's literally an array index into whatever your form options are. And some of these are probably not, I don't think this one's required, so I may actually comment this out when we go to put it on the page. And then here, there's some things that you can do with inputs. Like you can tell it, this is a type of email. The browser will validate that it's an email address, not necessarily that it's deliverable, but that it matches the format of an email address. Auto capitalization off means that when you're on a phone and it's doing that stupid thing where it's trying to auto capitalize the first letter of a word, won't do it. Autocorrect equals off again. When it's doing that stupid thing where you're trying to type your email address and then all of a sudden it tries to split it in 3 different words, it's just a little extra assurance. There's lots of little hint things like this that you can use for mobile devices so that they don't do stupid by default, which is what they normally do. Okay. So yeah, that's basically it. We've got our two special form fields that are the U and the ID, which is basically the user identifier with Mailchimp and then the form ID with Mailchimp under that user. You've got some honeypot fields that are going to get ignored. So you just need to make sure that they're not visually present to most users. And then you've got some actual inputs that are what's going to get sent. And then you need to have a subscribe button. And again, it doesn't make sense necessarily to put a label here from the purely pedantic perspective because there's no label that we're labeling. I'm just wrapping this in a label. But the reason that I'm wrapping it in a label is because that's going to give me the ability to expand the target size by a couple of pixels so that in the same area, like I just explained, in the same area where the button activates, the button will be clickable. That's one of the great things about a label. So some people are like, you shouldn't do this because there's no label for a button. It doesn't have a word label. It doesn't matter. The label property gives you something that you don't get any other way. I've talked with a couple of CSS experts and they came up with really hacky, crappy solutions. And this label, well, one of them wasn't so bad. But yeah, they're generally really bad. And label is just really simple and easy to work with. It doesn't require crazy browser hacks. Okay, then the next bit we need to go over is let's go over the script and then we can go over the style last. So my form, I gave it a class mcsubscribed. So I can do document.body.querySelector and I can grab form.mcsubscribe and I can add the event listener for the submit on it. This means that when the submit button, the button that is of type submit, that is inside of the form, so you can see this input, it could be an input or a button of type submit that's inside the form, it's got this value, subscribe. When that gets clicked or when the person hits enter, it's going to fire off this function. And this function is going to say, don't do your default thing. So basically don't submit the form and don't propagate the event, meaning don't bubble up the submit event to, if we have a form inside of a form, don't bubble up the submit event to the next form in the series. Capture the event here and cancel it here. And then the thisness applies to the form. So I could probably say my form equals this. That would be a much nicer way to go about this thing because this is really hard to read and understand. So let's just get rid of this. So a form has a method that was post. We saw that earlier. I'll go back up and show that again. It has an action, which is a URL to which the form is posting. And then in the DOM, a form has a special property called elements, which is an array of the inputs that are inside of it. So we're going to go through each of those inputs. And if this was just for debugging purposes, I was just checking to see some ID stuff. So this isn't actually necessary. I'm going to leave that in for myself, but I'm not going to go over what that is. Okay, and then we need to format the inputs as a URL-encoded form. So we use encode URI component for that. So basically what this is doing here is saying if the element name, for example, was merge0, and then the value was an email address, then it's going to provide an escaped version of the name and an escaped version of the email address. Now, as a general rule, you should escape names. In this particular case, merge0 doesn't have any special characters. It doesn't need to be escaped. The email address, I believe the @ sign is considered a special character. Periods, I don't believe are. But there's definitely things that, somebody could put a question mark in a form field, and that is a special character for an HTML body. So anyway, I just take these params and I push them onto each other, so we end up with an array that looks like this. And then I take those and I join them with an ampersand. So instead of having an array that looks like that, we end up with a string that looks more like this. say my question for merge one was reason. We can just put because there. So that's about what that looks like. And then I'm going to log it, and then I'm going to use window.fetch to do a post. No, this is the action. This is the URL. We're going to do a post. We're going to put it in no cores mode, and we're going to set the content type to URL form encoded, which is what we just did here with the encoding and the ampersand stuff. And the text that actually gets sent looks like this. This is the actual text that gets sent as the form body. It looks like that. So it's not JSON. It is this www form URL encoded. And yeah, that's the body. The body is the post right there. Yep. So that's it. So that's kind of our form explained. And then let me go back. I just wanted to show, again, here's our action. This is the URL that it's posting to. That's the Mailchimp not API, because it's not actually listed in their API. It's just hackily mentioned in this article. And there's the method, that's the post, and then the inputs, we already went through those. So let's go up and take a look at the CSS real quick. Actually, I'm going to try to build this, and then I want to take a look at the CSS in the inspector in the browser. And we'll go back and forth and reference these. So let's see if I get lucky here. Nav index.js. I think I can delete this. Yeah, okay, I can delete that because we've already incorporated all of that. That was just a temporary file. And let's see here. Let's see what happens if I just do the build. Oh, unbound variable. How terrible. Let's go to line 55 here and see unbound variable. Render HTML. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Ah, no 4. Got it. So what is it supposed to be? My created date? Yeah, I'll just leave that blank. Same thing over here. We'll just leave the dates blank for these pages because they don't need a date on them. Okay, cool. All right, now I think I had a deploy script in here as well. So I'm just going to deploy this real quick. Let's see the scripts, server deploy versus local deploy. I do a local deploy. Yeah. Let me run that. All right, so for lucky, then my web page here has now been updated. Yay, it's got the form. Cool. Sweet, let's see if it works real quick. So I'll just put in, actually I'm gonna check, oh, that one. I'm gonna update one more thing here before we go. We go to nav and I forgot where I put this. Oh, I put it in the template file. I just want to fix that real quick. Template.html. There we go. Yeah, just wanted to fix that. Just want to make sure everything about the site works, and then I'll make sure the form works. First, I want to make sure I didn't break anything. So let's refresh. All right, blog articles, project articles, contact information, and the main page. Excellent. This is awesome. Oh, that's weird. Oh, okay. That was just caching. All right. Cool. So let's go ahead and put in here. In Gmail, you can use the plus, and then you can put whatever you want. I think this is actually part of the email spec. This is how I create test emails. Is I just put in my email, and then put a plus, whatever, and then put my @gmail.com. I'm just going to leave this blank and see if it submits. Let me open up the inspector here before we actually do anything. You want to open up the inspector first, because if you open up the inspector after, it may not have captured whatever you were trying to do. So I hit, what is it, Command Option I think opens the inspector, or you open it from the menu down here. More tools, developer tools. Yeah, that was the inspector. Or you just right click inspect. Same thing. All of it does the same thing. Okay, so I want to be in the network tab because we're going to check and see if the network stuff goes through. And I want to just go ahead and clear, use the don't sign button to go ahead and clear everything. And then let's see what happens if I hit subscribe. Did anything go through? Yay, it did. Excellent. Let me see what's in the console here. Did I get some post? Well, that's weird. Huh. I don't know what that's about. But I guess I console.log this. And that's what it is. Okay, cool. So that looks like that worked. And let's click on this. And okay, my honeypot fields are empty. My U and ID fields have the correct values in them. My two merge fields are what I expect them to be, and submit probably doesn't matter. And let's see, do I get a response? Don't get a response because cross-origin resource sharing. This is not actually an API. This is a hack, like I said. They don't call it a hack on their article, but this is totally a hack. We're doing a cross-site form post, which is generally considered a bad practice when there's not a CORS or cross-origin resource sharing policy set in place. So basically, this is literally what you use when you want to hack a website. This is generally considered a vulnerability. Is you're on website A, beyondcode.duckdns.org, and then without a security policy in place, you just post data to another website. But you know, sometimes we have to do the hacky things when they work, and this looks like it works. So I'm going to go ahead and in the other screen, I'm going to go check my email and just verify that I got the sign up letter from Mailchimp. And indeed, I did. Yeah. It's looking good. Cool. So I've got the double confirm email. I'm not going to show that because I don't want you to see all of my emails. And yeah, so I think we're kind of done there. We did the thing that we intended to do. I need to do some stuff to style this and make it look a little nicer. Oh, I did want to look at the style sheet because there's a couple things that I want to do. Let's see. So you can see when I click on a label, the label is any area around this. It puts me in the form. And it doesn't. And it is, I don't know if you can tell, but now the button is activating a few pixels earlier. So the button is activating pretty much in the visual area. It's very hard to get it to exactly the right pixel, but it activates outside of the border, which is what I want. And we can get it to activate even better than that. So I'm going to go back to looking at the style sheet. We'll open this up in both places. Let me go to, no, we want the template, which is under nav. Okay, we can look at the style here. I'm going to just do right-click inspect, and we can look at the style here. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Don't want to make it too big because there's a lot of information here that we're trying to take a look at. But here's our form, and we can see over here what's being, the classes that are being applied to it and the styles. So if I let it go the full width of the page, it will. If I don't specify width, it'll be the full width of the page. If I do, I don't really quite understand grid myself, to be honest. I lean on the CSS experts for CSS because I only know the rudimentary stuff from the 90s. I try to stay away from a lot of the modern stuff because it's just so complicated. Those young whippersnappers. Oh, that's what the grid gap is. Got it. Okay, cool. So grid basically allows you to define a table, but and gives you more control over it. And it is a little bit more mobile friendly because you can have a grid that when it's desktop size will look like a table, but when it's mobile size will collapse. And sometimes it's better and sometimes it's worse. But it looks pretty good here, and I think it'll look just fine on mobile as well. And let's see, is there anything in particular that was interesting about what we were doing with these forms? I don't think there's too interesting. Let me go look at this here. The most interesting thing is the field shift, which I've commented here, hide the honey. So we've got that honeypot. Let me go back to where that is. So these are these inputs that we don't want them to fill out. And we've wrapped it in a div that has field shift and basically field shift. And we don't name these things like honeypot, etc., because bots will know. We want them to look like things that are attractive to bots, like name and comment and that sort of thing. So a bot isn't going to look at a class called field shift and necessarily be able to detect like, oh, this is, we're spam bots. We need to avoid this area if they don't want to be detected. But anyway, we have field shift, and it just says, take that div, mark its position as absolute, and put it 10,000 pixels somewhere else over to the left. So ostensibly somewhere in a non-visible area that a user could never navigate to, there is all of those inputs are visible there. So if I were to get rid of this, let me just go ahead and do that real quick. Oh, now that actually won't work because this is local and this is live. But I could do it right here, I think. Let me get rid of this field shift class. There we are. So now we can see here are the honeypot fields. Very attractive fields to a spam bot. But field shift puts them way the heck somewhere out there where we can't see them. That's the most interesting thing. All this MC row stuff, we're just putting things in grids. And giving them some padding. We've got some form stuff here. What was I doing with this? I don't remember what I was doing. Margin, top box. Oh, I do kind of remember this. Okay. I think I might be able to get rid of that. Because I think this was one of the clever ways that I was using. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So basically what happens here is when I mouse over, there's certain changes that take effect in the form. And now this is actually inside of a label. So I think I need to do like this, because I put all of those inside of a label. Do we have any buttons on the form? I think we only have inputs on the form right now. Yeah, we're using input because there's two different ways to do a submit. You can do a button of type submit, or you can do an input of type submit, and they both visually look like the same thing, but they get selected differently. Okay, I'm going to redeploy this, updating for the fact that these things are now inside the labels, and I think what that does is gives it a visual style where it gets a little bit lighter. I don't know, I'm not actually seeing it, and I don't want to dig into it too much. I'll dig into it later when I need to look at it more closely again. But let's go back here and see if there's anything else particularly interesting. We're telling the label inside of this. And I like to scope things this way. I like it when, rather than having lots of classes on every little thing, classes on a label, classes on an input, classes on this and that and whatever, I much prefer to take the approach of find a container and then style all the things inside of the container in the way that they should be styled in the container. And I consider this, for me, it's an easier to approach component rather than what most people do, which is where they just put classes on everything. It's like, look, if this is an MC subscribed form, if that's what the type of this thing is, if that's what the class of this thing is, then I just use this as a prefix. And then I say, okay, well, inside of an MC subscribed form, if there's a label that's in a row, make that label look this way. And I'm actually going to give these a little bit of padding. I want to give them like 0.5 EM, I think. And then let's see if that does what I wanted it to do. Sorry, I'm switching back and forth a little bit, but now Yeah, okay. So now you can see there's plenty of space, whereas I get close to that button, and if I were to click it out here, I think it actually will click. I think we're just not seeing. I need to add more CSS to it to make it so that you can see the click when it clicks. That's one of the things I don't like about modern web development is we used to have, when you clicked on a button, the default used to be that the button would look like it was being clicked. It would depress. And nowadays it's often really hard to tell whether an action is happening or not. Okay, so it looks like this is sending nothing. Okay, cool. So yeah, so when I click out here, it actually is clicking, but there's no visual indicator of a click, unfortunately. So I need to go in and add that to the CSS. I don't think I removed it. We'll do that real quick. Why not? We're all here together. Oh gosh, it's getting late though. I need to get to bed. CSS click style. How to style a click button. I think it's active is the attribute. Okay, we've got hover. And we have focus. And do we have anything else? When you click it, it will turn red. So it is the focus property. All right. So if we go back over here, if I have, let's see, where am I styling the inputs? I think this is right. Am I doing anything with hover? Okay, if there's a button hover, if there's this whatever hover, I think I need to copy this and put focus in. And then we can probably want to keep most of this stuff the same, but maybe we change the box shadow to be a different color. Let's take the brightness down. Let's take it down to say 0.9. And we want that to happen pretty quickly because it's a click. So I'm going to say when I have that happen almost immediately, and then I'm not sure what a good color would be for this, but this one's R, G, and B. So we can maybe make it a little darker. Let's just try cutting these values in half and see what happens. 107, 3, take that down to 1. That should give us a little bit of a darker color in general. I'm going to try that out. See how it works here. Where did it go? Okay, so that looks good. That looks good. Get some hover. Ah, excellent. That's what I like to see. Now, can we get a click release? CSS style click release. Change button style after click. Focus. I guess we'd probably have to use some JavaScript or something to say unfocus. Let me try that. I'm going to try that. That seems reasonable enough. So where was my format? So I have my form. I think when this is done, I think we could call my form.unfocus. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm going to Google it. HTML form unfocus. Or maybe it's called blur. It's the blur method. Remove focus from an element. Okay. So let's try this. We can try my form blur. We can also try query selector, what was it called? Name equals submit, I think. Okay, so I think if we're on the form and we select inside of the form for name equals submit, I think that's going to get our submit button. And then we can blur that, and then we can blur the form. So let's give it a try. So here we are. Doot, doot. Oh, nice. It's a little bit delayed. I like it. I think it's pretty good. Good enough for now. All right, I'm going to go ahead and commit this work. And I wish there was a way. I don't want to add too much JavaScript to the page. I like being kind of light on the JavaScript. But it would be nice, and it might be something I would do if I was going to make this more widgety, to have a way to define those important variables in JavaScript, the user ID and the form ID, and then leave them blank in the form and have them fill into the form. But right now, I think this page will work if someone has a really crappy browser that doesn't support JavaScript for some reason. Like, well, no, because the form has to submit with JavaScript, but the form will submit without JavaScript as well. So the form, if we took away the JavaScript, the form will functionally submit. This is good. It will just take them to like an error page or something, or a thanks page that's over on Mailchimp rather than staying on the current site. Oh, one last thing that we could do here that would actually be really good before I commit this. This is a stupid way to do it, but I'm going to go ahead and do it this way right now because, hey, it works. Window.alert. Thanks. Check your email to confirm and continue. There we go. Good. So now I'm going to build that one last time, and then we'll go ahead and commit this, and that's it. That's what we've got. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put in a real email address. And I'd actually, one thing I would do too is I would, I would actually change the JavaScript so that it doesn't submit the form when the form won't be valid. So if the email address is missing, for example. In fact, we could probably do that. Let me do this again. Where was the email at? I'm going up to the form that had the email. I think that was merge 0. Yeah. So I'm going to put required equals required. Oh, sorry, I went too fast there. So I'm putting required equals required, which means that it will not allow the form to submit even in JavaScript if this is left empty. So this one is required. Now the other one's optional. So I'm going to go ahead and publish this. I'm going to just copy this email address, refresh the page. It comes up blank there. And then actually, let me just go ahead and leave this blank. Good. So we get the browser's default behavior of, hey, this field is required. Excellent. And then if I click submit, thanks, check your email to confirm and continue. Okay, cool. So now we've given the user feedback. Huzzah. Mission accomplished. All is well. Let me go ahead and do a quick git diff -w cache. -w means ignore white space. So if we just like indented something, and I want to see, here's all the things that were added and removed from indentation. All right, so we changed our render page function, which still seems to be working fine. We did some swappy-do on whether or not we're going to try to render Markdown or if we're going to try to just copy HTML. We put a little if statement around articles so that we make sure we have support for both Markdown and HTML. We added a new type of index file that we're rendering as HTML rather than having it be the blog listing. We swapped the old one to be called blog. We just changed render page to render markdown for the nav items that need to be that way. I actually might invert this again. I might create a function that's called render page helper and have render page check to see, does this thing exist as HTML or does it exist as markdown, and then call that. But I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to leave that for another time. Okay, there, nothing crazy. Here we just have our form, all that stuff we went through. Okay, well, that's that. And then sometime this week, I'll probably just add a YouTube video and some better copy text, maybe center this on the page. Maybe I'll add a background image. I mean, there is some stuff about this that's good. It might be good to add the logo back up here, especially if I was complaining about the branding issue. But yeah, maybe I'll get the logo up in this area. Computer in the grass, of course, because that's where computers go. We know this. Yeah, maybe I'll put some extra text or something. Social stuff. Maybe I'll put some social stuff on there. Yeah, but for right now, this is kind of where I wanted to go. I just want to get to having a custom for it. I'm probably also going to remove some of the spacing because I put some padding on the label. Let me go ahead and look at that real quick. And so we don't need as much spacing in the grid itself. Yeah. So there's the label. You can see the padding that it adds. And so we don't need quite so much padding in between with the grid gap. Where's that grid gap at? Let me see if I can find that real quick. Where are you at, grid gap? Okay, grid gap. Yeah, we could maybe put like, that looks good. Yeah, I'll fix that later. Or I'll fix it now. I'll fix it right now and then we'll commit. That'll be it. Nav index grid gap 0.5 em. And add that back. Okay, move articles to blog page. Add subscribe to new landing page. That's what we did. Push it. I've got the auto deploy set up. So once it's pushed, it auto deployed again, even though we pretty much tested this every time. Oh, except for the grid spacing. I don't think we redid that. So that should have, yeah, auto-deployed. We're good. We added a Mailchimp form to the page. We did it. High five. Great moral support. Thanks. Really appreciated it. It's great to have you with us. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do a little alt escape here. If this is useful, if you learned something, go ahead, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more like this, you got some subscribes, links to the live channel and the edited channel in the doobly-doo. What else have we got here? Some stuff I'm supposed to say. You know, I'm glad that you watched. I hope that you learned something and that you're moving forward in your career and your knowledge and all that. And if you do have questions or comments, if you've got questions, hit me up on Twitter @_beyondcode. And if you got some comments, leave them in the comments below. If there's anything particularly that you had a question about or was important to you, it'd be great if you can put a little time code with it. You know, put like 0:05. That would be 5 seconds in, but you know, like that. Anyway, yeah, for reals, adios.